By chance, Denise would see a news story about the Energy Employees Compensation Program introduced by Senator John Glenn. Under the act, the worker or their survivors could receive a tax-free lump sum from the government. Brock sought a claim on her mother's behalf.
Filing the claim and the entire claim process was not quite what it was cracked up to be, or what I perceived it to be, I should say. It was much more difficult than one could even imagine. From the initial filing, the paperwork itself, to even proving his employment, my father's employment, because at the time we didn't even file a claim for my mom. We just hadn't even really talked about her working there. I called Mallinckrodt because I knew you had to have proof of employment. So I called Mallinckrodt, and according to them, my father never worked there. Going through the process itself was more than burdensome. It was very difficult. And there were times when she said she was just going to give up. She would cry because she felt like she was so close, and then somebody was pulling the rug out from under her. You'd get one piece in order that they asked for, they being the Department of Labor and NIOSH, and then all of a sudden they needed something else. You had to have proof of this or proof of that, and it was so difficult.
The process began to take a toll on Evelyn. She would reach out one final time with a letter to the advisory board, describing what her family had been through.
Good afternoon. My name is Evelyn Davis. I would just like to take the opportunity to say a few things. My husband's name was Christopher Davis. He was employed by Mallinckrodt Chemical Company, Destrehan Street, St. Louis. In 1967, my husband was diagnosed with lung cancer. That day, our whole family's world turned upside down. Our lives, as we knew them, were never going to be the same. My husband had his left lung removed and could no longer work. I cannot even begin to tell you the emotional and physical distress that caused him. I had to juggle working every day, raising two small children who were 6 and 7 at the time of his diagnosis. We eventually lost our home, and I could no longer afford to pay tuition for my two younger children to attend Catholic school, nor pay a babysitter to keep them long hours I had to be gone. I had no choice but to relocate. I have an older daughter, Sharon, who at the time of my husband's diagnosis was newly married and had two small children of her own. That daughter had to carry the burden of watching her younger brother and sister while I worked and went to the hospital with my husband. This was a long, horrible illness. He suffered tremendously. He would be up at night in so much pain, his legs eventually turned black. They looked charred. He had to wear these elastic stockings, and when I would take them off of him, his skin would just rip off. The doctors were going to amputate both legs. All of this affected his self-esteem. He felt emasculated. He was very frightened at this time. Eventually, my husband was told that there was nothing more that could be done. On April the 27th, 1978, while I was at work, my husband died in our son's arms. To this day, I feel so guilty that I couldn't find a way to be in two places at once. I would have been home. My son wouldn't have had that horrific experience. It isn't just the loss of a loved one, it's the loss of a family, a home, life experiences for everyone. I will be 80 years old in April. I live on Social Security, and up until a month ago, I worked full-time. My health will no longer permit me to do that. I have had a quadruple bypass, and I am in poor health. My husband gave all that he had to that company and this government. He was one of the Cold War warriors, or were they victims? Originally, I thought that this compensation program would bring some quick relief. There is nothing quick about it, and trying to come up with medical records and employment records, many of which have long been destroyed, just makes a program that is rough justice even harder. I received a letter stating that dose reconstruction could take months, even years. Do you think I should work until I'm 95 or 100, waiting to see if I might get compensated? Or maybe everyone should figure if they have to wait that long for this mere pittance, maybe they should just wait for a class action lawsuit to be settled.
Denise would finally help guide her mom through the difficult process and receive compensation for the loss of her dad. But her journey would not end there.